Have you ever felt like you don't belong? Like the noise, the distractions, and the expectations of the world around you are pulling you away from something deeper? It's not just in your mind. There's a reason why you feel different, why crowded places drain you, and why you crave solitude in a world that never stops talking. You are not alone in this feeling. In fact, it may be the very sign that you have been set apart for something greater. C.S. Lewis once said, "If you find yourself with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that you were made for another world." And that's exactly what happens to the chosen ones. Those who carry a divine purpose, a calling that the world doesn't always understand. You weren't meant to fit in. You weren't designed to follow the crowd. You were created to stand out, to walk a different path, to embrace a destiny that requires you to separate from the noise so you can hear God's voice more clearly. But this calling comes with a price. The chosen ones often feel out of place, misunderstood, and even rejected. It's not because they think they are better than others. It's because their spirit is sensitive to things most people don't even notice. The energy of a room, the unspoken emotions in a conversation, the weight of the world pressing down. It all affects them more deeply than it does others. The truth is, being chosen isn't just about blessings, it's about burdens too. It's about walking a narrow path that few can understand. Jesus himself warned in John 15:19, "If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." This is why you sometimes feel disconnected from the people around you. It's not a mistake, it's not a flaw. It's a sign that God has placed something within you that the world cannot comprehend. And that means you need to protect it, nurture it, and embrace it. So if you've ever felt like you don't belong, if you've ever wondered why the crowd drains you while solitude gives you peace, stay with me. Because what you are experiencing isn't rejection, it's divine selection. And once you understand it, everything will begin to make sense. Being chosen by God is not about privilege, it's about responsibility. It's about carrying a spiritual weight that most people will never understand. When God sets someone apart, He doesn't just give them blessings, He gives them a mission. And that mission comes with challenges, sacrifices, and a deep sense of loneliness that only those who walk this path can truly comprehend. Most people crave connection, validation, and belonging. They thrive in social circles, feed off external approval, and measure their worth by how accepted they are by others. But for the chosen ones, the world often feels different. Crowded spaces feel suffocating, small talk feels empty, and the pressure to conform feels unbearable. It's not because they are antisocial or think they are better than others. It's because their spirit is sensitive to a higher frequency. The noise of the world can easily drown out the voice of God, and chosen ones know that their greatest clarity, their deepest peace, comes not from being in the crowd but from stepping away from it. Jesus warned in John 15:13-19, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world." This separation isn't accidental. It's intentional. God removes you from certain environments, certain friendships, and certain influences because He knows they will weaken your purpose. He calls you into seasons of isolation, not as a punishment, but as a time of preparation. In those quiet places, He sharpens you, refines you, and fills you with wisdom that you could never gain in the chaos of the crowd. But make no mistake, this path is not easy. The burden of being chosen means carrying a light that many do not want to see. It means speaking truth in a world that thrives on lies. It means being misunderstood, judged, and even rejected. Chosen ones often experience betrayal, loneliness, and the pain of outgrowing people they once loved. Their presence alone can make others uncomfortable because they serve as a mirror, reflecting the truth that others try to ignore. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." And that is the reality of being chosen. Standing firm in your faith even when no one understands, staying true to your calling even when it makes you an outcast, and walking the narrow path even when it feels like you're walking it alone. The Bible is filled with stories of those who were chosen and the burdens they had to bear. Moses was called to lead an entire nation, yet he spent years in exile before he ever stepped into his purpose. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but before he could step into his destiny, he was betrayed by his own brothers and thrown into prison. David was anointed as king, but he spent years running for his life before he ever sat on the throne. Even Jesus, the ultimate chosen one, was rejected, mocked, and crucified by the very people he came to save. This is the cost of being chosen. You will be misunderstood. You will be tested. You will have to walk through seasons where it feels like no one sees you, no one understands you, and no one supports you. But those seasons are necessary, because in those seasons, God is strengthening you, molding you, and preparing you for something greater. C.S. Lewis also said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." The struggles you face, the loneliness you endure, the battles you fight, none of it is wasted. It is all part of God's greater plan. He is shaping you into the person you need to be for the purpose He has prepared for you. So when you feel like you don't belong, when you feel the weight of being different, don't see it as a curse, see it as confirmation. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to lead, to stand apart, to carry something that the world cannot comprehend. And the truth is, the burden of being chosen is heavy, but it is also holy. It is a sign that God has placed something within you that is far greater than you can imagine. And in time, when you fully step into your calling, you will realize that every hardship, every lonely night, and every painful season was worth it. Because being chosen is not just about the burden, it's about the incredible destiny that comes with it. The world is full of noise, constant movement, endless distractions, and energy that shifts unpredictably. For most people, this is just a part of life. But for the chosen ones, it's different. Crowds don't just feel overwhelming, they feel spiritually draining. Being around too many people can make them feel disconnected, anxious, or even exhausted, and it's not because they are antisocial or arrogant. It's because their spirit operates on a different level, one that is highly sensitive to the energies, emotions, and even spiritual battles happening all around them. Imagine walking into a room where every conversation, every emotion, and every intention suddenly becomes visible and tangible. That's how chosen ones experience the world. They don't just hear words, they feel the weight behind them. They don't just see faces, they perceive what's happening beneath the surface. This heightened awareness is a gift, but in crowded spaces, it can feel like a curse. The energy of too many people can become overwhelming, making it difficult to stay centered, focused, and aligned with God's voice. The Bible warns about this in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. It's not just about avoiding bad influences. It's about understanding that the people you surround yourself with will either strengthen your spirit or drain it. Crowds bring a mix of energies: fear, insecurity, pride, jealousy, and even hidden spiritual battles. These influences can subtly pull a chosen one away from their purpose, diluting their connection with God and clouding their inner peace. This is why Jesus himself often withdrew from the crowds. Despite having thousands of followers, he regularly retreated into solitude to pray and reconnect with the Father. Luke 5:6 says, "As often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He understood that being constantly surrounded by people could distract from the divine. If even Jesus, the Son of God, needed moments of stillness away from the crowd, how much more do chosen ones need the same? C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity, "We live, in fact, in a world starved for solitude, silence, and private, and therefore starved for meditation and true friendship." This perfectly describes the struggle of a chosen one. They don't just desire solitude, they need it. It's where they recharge, where they hear God, and where they receive divine revelations that the rest of the world is too busy to notice. But it's not just about feeling overwhelmed. There is also a spiritual battle happening in crowded spaces. The chosen ones are targets in the spirit realm. They carry a divine light, and darkness is always drawn to that light, not to embrace it, but to extinguish it. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us, For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Crowds are not just places of social interaction, they are places of spiritual warfare. People are drawn to chosen ones, often without knowing why. There's something about them that feels different, powerful, even magnetic. But at the same time, that difference can also make others uncomfortable. Chosen ones don't conform, they don't blindly follow trends, and they don't engage in meaningless conversations. This can make them seem distant, mysterious, or even intimidating to those who don't understand their nature. C.S. Lewis described this dynamic perfectly. When the whole world is running towards a cliff, he who is running in the opposite direction appears to have lost his mind. Chosen ones walk against the flow, and that makes them stand out. People may admire them, but they also fear them. Their presence alone can feel like a mirror, reflecting back to others their own shadows, insecurities, and unhealed wounds. This is why chosen ones often struggle with friendships, relationships, and social circles. Many people are drawn to them, but few can truly handle their depth. Most of society thrives on shallow connections, surface-level conversations, and artificial interactions. But chosen ones crave authenticity. They want deep, soulful discussions, spiritual growth, and meaningful connections. And that's rare to find. The struggle in crowds is not just about energy overload, it's about a difference in purpose. The chosen ones are not meant to blend in. They are not meant to conform. Matthew 7:14 says, "But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." The road they walk is narrow, and few people are walking in the same direction. So if you've ever felt out of place in a crowd, if you've ever craved quiet over chaos, if you've ever preferred depth over small talk, understand this: it's not a flaw, it's confirmation. It's proof that you were not created to walk the wide road. You were created for something greater. Instead of fighting this reality, embrace it. Protect your energy. Be intentional about who you allow into your space. Seek out those who truly understand your depth, rather than forcing connections that drain your spirit. And most importantly, never feel guilty for stepping away from the crowd to hear the one voice that truly matters: God's. There is a reason why chosen ones are drawn to solitude. It is not loneliness, it is preparation. It is where they find clarity, where they hear God's voice, and where they grow into the people they are meant to become. The world glorifies constant motion, endless socializing, and filling every moment with noise. But the chosen ones? They are called to step away from it all. They are called to something deeper. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We may ignore, but we can nowhere evade the presence of God. The world is crowded with him. He walks everywhere incognito." The problem is not that God is absent, it's that the world is too loud to notice him. That is why the chosen ones are called into solitude, because in the stillness, they can finally hear. Throughout history, God has used solitude to shape his greatest warriors. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he was ready to lead Israel. David was alone tending sheep long before he became king. Jesus himself frequently withdrew from the crowds to pray. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." If the Son of God needed solitude to align with his mission, how much more do we? But solitude is not always easy. The world teaches us that being alone means something is wrong. That if you don't have a large circle of friends, if you don't constantly engage with people, then you are somehow failing. This is a lie. The greatest growth, the greatest breakthroughs, and the greatest revelations often come when you are alone with God. C.S. Lewis put it perfectly: "He who has God and everything else has no more than he who has God only." In solitude, distractions fade away. The voices of the world are silenced, and all that remains is you and your Creator. And in that sacred space, he reveals things to you that the crowd will never understand. This is why chosen ones often feel different. They don't crave the same things the world craves. They don't feel the need to constantly fill their time with people, entertainment, or distractions. Instead, they feel drawn to quiet moments, deep conversations, and time spent in reflection. Because deep down, Their soul recognizes something others don't, that the greatest power doesn't come from the noise of the world, but from the whispers of God. Yet solitude comes with its own struggles. The chosen ones may feel isolated, misunderstood, or even tempted to question if they are on the right path. Elijah experienced this. After witnessing God's power in a mighty display against the prophets of Baal, he ran to the wilderness, exhausted and alone. He felt abandoned. He cried out, believing he was the only one left. But in 1 Kings 19:11-12, God revealed something profound. He was not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle whisper. That is where God speaks to his chosen ones. Not in the chaos, not in the distractions, but in the stillness. This is why being too connected to the world can be dangerous. Too much noise, too many opinions, too many influences can cloud what God is trying to tell you. The chosen ones are highly sensitive to spiritual energies, and if they are constantly surrounded by distractions, it weakens their ability to hear and discern what is from God and what is from the world. Matthew 6:6 tells us, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." There is power in seeking God in solitude. C.S. Lewis wrote, "The real problem of the Christian life comes where people do not usually look for it. It comes the very moment you wake up each morning. All your wishes and hopes for the day rush at you like wild animals. And the first job each morning consists simply in shoving them all back, in listening to that other voice, taking that other point of view, letting that other, larger, stronger, quieter life come flowing in. That is why solitude is not a burden. It is a gift. It is a time of renewal, of deep connection, and of divine revelation. So if you have ever wondered why you prefer quiet over noise, why you feel exhausted after being around too many people, why you crave moments of deep reflection and stillness, understand this. It is because God is calling you closer. He is setting you apart, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The world will never understand the value of solitude. It will try to make you feel like something is wrong with you, like you should be more social, more involved, more engaged with everything happening around you. But the world does not determine your purpose. God does. So the next time you feel the pull towards stillness, don't resist it, embrace it. Because in that stillness, in that quiet, in that sacred space where it's just you and God, that is where your true power lies. Have you ever felt different, like you don't quite fit in with the people around you? Have you ever had moments where you sensed that your life was meant for something greater, even if you couldn't explain why? If so, it's not your imagination. It's a sign that you are set apart for a divine purpose. Being chosen doesn't always come with clear instructions, but there are unmistakable signs that God has placed something special within you. You don't see the world the way others do. Where most people are content with the surface, you crave depth. You ask questions that others avoid. You look beyond what is visible and sense something greater at work. This is because chosen ones are wired differently. Their perspective is not shaped by the world's standards, but by a spiritual awareness that most people don't have. C.S. Lewis once said, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." This longing for something greater is not just wishful thinking. It's your spirit recognizing that you were created for something beyond the ordinary. You feel things deeply, sometimes too deeply. The emotions of others, the suffering in the world, the spiritual battles happening around you, you can sense it all. This isn't weakness, it's discernment. God has given you a heightened awareness, an ability to pick up on things that others ignore. This is why certain places, certain conversations, and certain people drain you. Your spirit detects things that most people don't notice, and because of that, you often feel exhausted in environments that others find normal. The Bible tells us in Matthew 5:8, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a gift that allows you to perceive spiritual truths more clearly. You have always felt like an outsider, even in places where you were supposed to belong. Whether it was school, family, friendships, or even church, you often found yourself questioning things that others accepted without hesitation. This is because chosen ones are not designed to follow the crowd. They are meant to walk a different path, one that often leads them away from the noise of the world and closer to God. Jesus said in John 15, verse 19, "If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." The discomfort you feel in worldly settings is not a coincidence, it's confirmation. You have been through hardships that others haven't. Life has not been easy for you. You have faced betrayals, disappointments, and trials that felt impossible to overcome. But every time, you have risen stronger. Chosen ones go through intense refining seasons because God is preparing them for something greater. He allows them to experience pain, not to break them, but to strengthen them. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." Every battle you have faced has been shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. You cannot tolerate dishonesty, manipulation, or shallow living. You crave authenticity in a world that thrives on deception. You can sense when people are lying, pretending, or hiding something. You have a natural ability to see through facades, which often makes people uncomfortable around you. They may not understand why, but something about you exposes their hidden motives. This is because chosen ones carry light, and wherever light is present, darkness is revealed. Ephesians 5:13 says, "But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light." Your presence alone challenges the status quo, even when you don't say a word. You feel a strong calling, even if you don't know exactly what it is yet. There is something inside you that won't let you settle for a mediocre life. You know that you are meant for something more, even if you can't fully define it yet. This inner restlessness is God's way of keeping you aligned with His purpose. He is constantly pulling you toward growth, toward transformation, toward becoming who He created you to be. Philippians 1:6 reminds us, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." You are not here by accident. Your desires, your dreams, and your instincts are leading you towards something bigger than yourself. You attract both admiration and resistance. Some people are drawn to your energy, your wisdom, your strength, but others are intimidated by it. Chosen ones often experience a mix of being deeply loved by some and misunderstood by many. People may try to diminish you, question you, or even reject you because they don't understand the depth of your calling. This can be painful, but it is also a sign that you are walking in alignment with your purpose. Jesus himself faced rejection, even from his own people, yet he never allowed their disbelief to stop him. Luke 4:24 says, "Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in his hometown." If you have faced rejection, know that you are in good company. You have a deep desire to help others, even when it's not convenient. Chosen ones are naturally drawn to lifting others up. They feel a strong responsibility to guide, to teach, and to inspire. Their journey is not just about their own growth, it's about helping others find their way too. Proverbs 11:25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Your heart for others is a reflection of God's heart within you. If you recognize yourself in these signs, don't ignore them. They are reminders that you are set apart for something greater. The road ahead may not always be easy, but it is purposeful. Embrace who you are. Protect your spirit, and never forget, you are chosen for a reason. Loneliness is one of the heaviest burdens a chosen one must carry. It is not just about being physically alone, but feeling spiritually and emotionally disconnected from the world around you. It is the deep awareness that no matter how many people surround you, few truly understand you. This loneliness is not a punishment, it is part of the calling. The world does not know what to do with those who walk in truth, with those who see beyond illusions, and with those who refuse to conform. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken." Chosen ones love deeply, but they also experience deep pain because they are often misunderstood, misjudged, and even rejected by those they care about. Their depth intimidates people. Their presence makes others uncomfortable, not because they intend to, but because they reflect truth. And truth is something many people fear. The loneliness of the chosen one often begins at an early age. As children, they feel different. While others chase after popularity, material success, and validation, chosen ones crave meaning, depth, and purpose. They notice things others ignore. They ask questions that make people uncomfortable. They feel emotions more deeply, love more intensely, and see through deception in ways others cannot. This makes them stand out, but not always in a way that feels good. Instead of being celebrated, they are often seen as strange, too intense, or even difficult to be around. Jesus himself experienced this. In John 1:11, it says, "He came to his own, and his own did not receive him." The Son of God walked among the very people he came to save, yet he was rejected, ridiculed, and eventually crucified. If even Christ, the ultimate chosen one, had to endure loneliness, how much more must his followers? One of the hardest realities chosen ones must accept is that not everyone is meant to walk with them. Friendships will fade. Relationships will end. People they once felt close to will drift away. This is not because something is wrong with them, but because they are growing in a direction others are not ready for. C.S. Lewis explained it this way: "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." The chosen ones often walk a path that challenges and exposes others. Their energy is intense. Their presence brings clarity. They see through falsehoods, and that can make others uncomfortable. Most people prefer the illusion of comfort over the discomfort of truth. So when a chosen one enters a room, they unknowingly serve as a mirror, reflecting back to others the things they would rather avoid. This is why many people admire the chosen ones from a distance, but hesitate to get too close. At first, they are drawn in by their wisdom, their authenticity, and their depth. But as they get closer, they begin to realize that being in their presence requires facing their own hidden fears, insecurities, and unhealed wounds. Instead of embracing the challenge, most retreat back to what is familiar. They disappear. They ghost. They cut off the relationship without explanation. Not because the chosen ones have done anything wrong, but because their presence alone was too much for them to handle. C.S. Lewis once said, "Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'What, you too? I thought I was the only one.' But for the chosen ones, those moments of connection are rare. They long for deep, soulful relationships, but they often struggle to find people who truly understand them. They feel a constant tension. They crave connection, yet they know that most people will not be able to meet them where they are. This is why they often prefer solitude over shallow connections. Not because they dislike people, but because being alone feels less painful than being misunderstood. They find peace in quiet moments with God, in deep reflection, in prayer, in the stillness where they can hear his voice without interference. Psalm 46:10 reminds us, "Be still and know that I am God." In that stillness, they are reminded that their loneliness is not a curse, it is a calling. But even in solitude, the chosen ones sometimes wrestle with doubt. They wonder if something is wrong with them. They question why their journey is so different, so much harder. They ask God, "Why am I always the one who has to walk away? Why do people leave? Why do I feel so alone?" The answer is both painful and beautiful, because you are not meant to walk where everyone else walks. Matthew 7:13-14 says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." The chosen ones walk the narrow road. It is lonely. It is steep. It is filled with obstacles. But it is the only road that leads to true purpose, true transformation, and true fulfillment. C.S. Lewis wrote, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." And that is the hope that chosen ones must hold on to. The loneliness is not permanent. The isolation is not forever. God is preparing them, shaping them, strengthening them for something greater. And when the time is right, he will bring the right people, the ones who can truly walk beside them. Until then, the chosen ones must embrace the solitude rather than fear it. Because in that solitude, they will find their greatest strength. In that loneliness, they will find their truest self. And in that stillness, they will hear the only voice that truly matters, God's voice, reminding them that they were never really alone to begin with. The path of the chosen is not wide. It is not easy. It is not filled with applause or comfort. It is a narrow road walked by few, understood by even fewer. It is a path that requires sacrifice, faith, and a willingness to endure seasons of solitude. But it is also the only path that leads to true purpose, to divine fulfillment, and to the life God has called you to live. Matthew 7:13-14 tells us, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." The world will always encourage you to take the easy road, the road where you blend in, where you compromise, where you silence your convictions for the sake of acceptance. But the chosen ones are not called to that road. They are called to something higher. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "We are what we believe we are." The chosen ones believe in something greater, and that belief shapes everything about them. They cannot ignore truth. They cannot pretend to be something they are not. They cannot force themselves to conform to a world that feels foreign to them. But walking this narrow path comes with challenges. The first is the burden of isolation. The more you grow in faith, the more you will notice a separation from the people and things that once felt familiar. This is not because you are better than others, but because God is calling you to a different standard. In John 15:19, Jesus says, "If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." The world does not understand the chosen ones. It does not understand their convictions, their depth, their refusal to follow the crowd, and so the world rejects them. The second challenge is the temptation to turn back. There will be moments when the narrow path feels too difficult, when you feel weary, when you wonder if it would be easier to just give in, to just take the wide road like everyone else. But the chosen ones cannot unsee what they have seen. They cannot unknow what God has revealed to them. C.S. Lewis wrote, "You can never get a cup of tea large enough or a book long enough to suit me." The chosen ones feel this in their soul, an unquenchable thirst for something deeper, something greater, something eternal. That longing is a gift, but it also means that nothing in this world will ever satisfy them the way that God's purpose can. Walking the narrow path requires courage. It means making decisions that others won't understand. It means choosing faith over fear, obedience over comfort, and purpose over popularity. It means letting go of relationships that pull you away from your calling. It means standing firm in your convictions, even when you stand alone. Ephesians 6:13 reminds us, "Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm." Chosen ones do not walk this path alone. God equips them, strengthens them, and leads them every step of the way. The world will offer distractions. It will try to lure you back with temporary pleasures, with the illusion of an easier life. But C.S. Lewis warns, if we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world. And that is the truth. Chosen ones are not made for this world. They are made for something greater. Their purpose, their destiny, their mission is not tied to what is temporary, but to what is eternal. So if the path feels lonely, if the journey feels difficult, if the world does not understand you, take heart. You are walking exactly where you are meant to walk. Keep moving forward. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because the narrow path may not be the easiest road, but it is the only one that leads to life. Being a chosen one comes with a responsibility, not just to fulfill your purpose, but to protect your energy along the way. The world is filled with distractions, negativity, and spiritual battles that can drain you, weaken your connection with God, and pull you away from your calling. If you do not guard your energy, you will find yourself exhausted, overwhelmed, and disconnected from the very source that fuels your purpose. Protecting your energy is not selfish, it is essential. The first step is setting spiritual boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone carries the same spiritual weight. Some people come into your life to drain you, to confuse you, to pull you into chaos. These are the distractions sent by the enemy to weaken your spirit. 1 Corinthians 15:33 reminds us, "Do not be misled, bad company corrupts good character." Protecting your energy means being intentional about who you allow into your space, who you listen to, and who you give your time to. If someone consistently brings negativity, drama, or confusion into your life, it is a sign that their presence is not serving your purpose. Chosen ones must also spend time in prayer and meditation daily. The world is loud. People's opinions, social media, and the pressures of life can easily drown out the voice of God. This is why Jesus himself often withdrew from the crowds to pray. Luke 5 says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." If even Jesus needed to step away from people to recharge, how much more do we? In prayer, you realign your spirit. In solitude, you hear God's whispers. Without these moments of stillness, your energy becomes scattered and your purpose becomes harder to follow. Another way to protect your energy is by surrounding yourself with like-minded believers. Chosen ones are rare, and that makes their journey lonely. But God never intended for you to walk this road entirely alone. He places people in your path who understand you, who uplift you, who share your vision. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Seek out those who strengthen your spirit rather than drain it. Surround yourself with those who encourage your faith rather than make you doubt it. It is also crucial to guard what you consume, not just in food, but in what you watch, listen to, and entertain. The world is full of noise designed to pull you away from God. Music, media, and conversations can either fill you with light or pull you into darkness. Philippians 4:8 tells us, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." Protecting your energy means being mindful of what you allow into your mind and heart. The enemy does not always attack with obvious weapons. Sometimes he works through distractions, toxic influences, and subtle compromises. One of the greatest challenges chosen ones face is learning to say no. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every invitation requires your presence. People will try to pull you into their chaos, their problems, their expectations, but you are not called to carry burdens that are not yours. C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." Protecting your energy means choosing where to invest it. Say no to anything that pulls you away from peace. Say no to anything that makes you compromise your faith. Say no to anything that distracts you from your mission. Finally, chosen ones must rest in God's presence. The world glorifies busyness, but God calls his people to rest. Exodus 33:14 says, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." You do not have to fight every battle. You do not have to prove yourself to the world. Your value does not come from how much you do. It comes from who you are in Christ. Resting in his presence allows you to recharge, to gain clarity, and to receive the strength you need for the journey ahead. C.S. Lewis reminds us, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." But to step into those things, you must protect the light within you. Guard your mind, protect your heart, preserve your energy. Because the more aligned you are with God, the clearer your purpose will become. And when you walk in your true purpose, no force in this world can stop you. If you've ever felt different, if you've ever struggled to fit in, if you've ever wondered why your journey seems lonelier and harder than others, understand this. You were never meant to follow the crowd. You were chosen to walk a higher path. The struggles, the solitude, the battles you've faced were never meant to break you. They were meant to prepare you. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." And that is exactly what God is doing in your life. Every obstacle, every rejection, every season of loneliness has been shaping you into the person he created you to be. The world may not understand you. People may doubt you, misunderstand you, or even turn away from you. But you are not here to seek the world's approval. You are here to fulfill a divine purpose. Isaiah 41:10 reminds us, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." You are never truly alone. Even in your hardest moments, even when you feel like no one understands, God is walking with you. He has been guiding you, protecting you, and preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. The narrow path is not easy, but it is worth it. You were chosen not just to survive, but to lead, to shine, to break generational curses, to inspire others who are also searching for truth. Your presence in this world is not an accident. You were born for such a time as this. C.S. Lewis said, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." Let go of the past. Let go of the doubts. Let go of the need for validation. You don't need to be accepted by the world when you are already accepted by God. So keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting. Even when the road is lonely, even when the journey feels impossible, God is with you. And when the time is right, He will reveal the purpose behind every challenge, every setback, and every moment of solitude. If this message speaks to you, leave a comment below saying, "I am chosen." Stand in faith, walk with confidence, and never forget, your best days are still ahead.